My name is Avery Parker, and I'm one half of a conjoined twin, physically tethered to my sister Bailey by a shared pelvis and a tangle of nerves that have defined our lives for 30 years. Growing up in a small town in Minnesota, we were the Parker twins, a spectacle of love and resilience to the outside world, but a battleground of conflicting desires within. Bailey was the golden child, charming, optimistic, content to live as one. I was the restless one, yearning for independence, blamed for wanting more. This is the story of the most profound conflict we ever faced, the moment I wanted to be separated, and Bailey didn't, and how it forced me to fight for my identity, my best friend's daughter, and a future I could call my own. The Parker twins. We grew up in a modest, split-level house in Duluth, Minnesota, where the winters were harsh and the community was tight-knit. Our parents, David and Susan, were local celebrities of sorts, praised for raising conjoined twins with grace. To the world, Bailey and I were a miracle, sharing a pelvis, a portion of our lower spine, and a complex network of nerves and blood vessels. We could walk, move, and live with a synchronicity that amazed doctors, but it came at a cost. Bailey was the star, cheerful, outgoing, the twin who smiled for cameras and charmed reporters. I was the quiet one, introspective, the one who questioned our shared existence. Our parents leaned into Bailey's light. They called her the heart of our duo, praising her optimism while dismissing my restlessness as ungrateful. My mother would say, "Avery, why can't you be happy like Bailey? You're so lucky to have each other." My father, a high school principal, was sterner. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." They loved the spotlight, parading us at fundraisers, churches, and TV interviews. Bailey thrived on it. I hated it. I'd known since I was 12 that I was genderqueer, but when I came out at 15, my parents called it confusion and refused to discuss it, saying it would complicate our story. Bailey didn't mock me outright, but her silence stung. She'd smile and change the subject, keeping the peace at my expense. The pressure was relentless. Bailey got to lead our public appearances, her voice dominating interviews while I was expected to nod along. If I spoke up, wanting privacy or questioning our future, my parents would snap, "You're upsetting Bailey." At home, we shared everything, clothes, a bed, a life, but I craved my own space and my own identity. Bailey would say, "We're better together, Avery. Why do you want to ruin that?" Her words cut deep, echoing our parents' favoritism. High school was my outlet. I joined the art club, sketching graphic novel panels in secret, dreaming of stories where I was whole, separate, free. Bailey preferred music, singing in the choir, her voice carrying us both into the spotlight. I won a national art contest, earning a scholarship to the Minneapolis College of Art and Design. When I told my parents, hoping for recognition, my mother said, "That's nice, Avery, but Bailey's choir is performing at the state fair. That's our focus." My father grunted, eyes on his coffee. I left for college with a sketchbook and a vow to define myself beyond the Parker twins. College was a revelation. At MCAD, I was Avery, not just half of the Parker twins. Bailey and I attended together, of course, but I carved out my own space in the art department while she studied music. I majored in illustration, pouring my trauma into graphic novels about identity and freedom. I started therapy to unpack the PTSD and anxiety from our childhood, panic attacks triggered by the constant scrutiny, nightmares of being trapped in Bailey's shadow. My therapist, Dr. Kim, helped me name the trauma: narcissistic parenting, public pressure, the loss of individuality. I published my first graphic novel at 25, a semi-autobiographical story about a conjoined twin seeking independence. It won awards, and I landed a contract with a small press. Our shared apartment in Minneapolis was cluttered with my art supplies and Bailey's sheet music, a fragile balance of our divergent dreams. Bailey, meanwhile, struggled. She auditioned for orchestras but lacked the drive to compete at a professional level. She taught music lessons, living off our parents' praise and occasional financial support. They still saw her as the heart, dismissing my success as niche. When we visited home, they'd gush over Bailey's recitals, ignoring my book signings. It hurt, but I'd built a life where their approval wasn't the goal. The conflict erupted when I was 29 during a rare family reunion in Duluth. Bailey and I were there, along with my best friend Claire's daughter, Zoe, 10. Claire, the only person who'd ever understood my need for independence, had died 3 years earlier in a hiking accident. Her ex-husband Nathan had custody of Zoe, but he was unreliable, often dodging my calls. I'd tried to stay in Zoe's life, sending art supplies and visiting when I could, but Nathan made it hard. At the reunion, Bailey was her usual radiant self, singing for the guests while our parents beamed. But Zoe was quiet, her hazel eyes fixed on the floor, her hands clutching a sketchbook I'd given her. I noticed a bruise on her cheek, faint but unmistakable. When I asked her about it, she whispered, "I tripped." Bailey quickly changed the subject, but my instincts, sharpened from years of storytelling, told me something was wrong. Later that night, I took Zoe to the backyard where the Minnesota sky glittered with stars and the air smelled of pine and frost. "Zoe," I said gently, "is everything okay with Nathan?" She hesitated and then whispered, "He's always angry. Bailey visits sometimes, says she's helping, but she just ignores me." My heart stopped. Bailey was involved with Zoe's care? Why hadn't anyone told me? That night I couldn't sleep, my mind racing. Bailey and I shared a bed, as always, her breathing steady while I stared at the ceiling. I'd been researching separation surgery for years, a risky procedure that could give me independence but might cost Bailey her mobility, or worse. I'd kept it quiet, knowing she'd refuse, but Zoe's situation pushed me to act. The next morning I told Bailey, "I want to explore separation surgery." Her face fell, her voice sharp. "You'd risk my life for your freedom? How selfish can you be, Avery?" Her words echoed our parents. Selfish, ungrateful, difficult. I confronted our parents in their living room, the smell of coffee and cinnamon rolls thick in the air. "Why is Bailey staying with Nathan?" I demanded. My mother froze, her mug trembling. "She's just helping out," she said, avoiding my eyes. My father snapped, "Don't make this about you, Avery." But I pressed, and they admitted the truth. Nathan had been struggling with alcoholism, and Bailey had been checking in on Zoe, funded by our parents. They hadn't told me because they thought I'd complicate things. I was stunned. Claire's daughter was in danger, and they'd entrusted her to Bailey, who was too absorbed in her own world to care. Worse, they'd kept it secret to protect their image as the perfect parents of the Parker twins. But the deeper conflict was my own, wanting separation, knowing it could hurt Bailey, and realizing our parents would always choose her comfort over mine. I drove to Nathan's house that afternoon, a dilapidated duplex on the edge of town. The place reeked of stale beer, with trash scattered across the floor. Bailey was there, scrolling through her phone, while Zoe sat alone, sketching. "What are you doing here, Avery?" Bailey asked, her voice sharp. "Come to ruin everything again?" "I'm here for Zoe," I said, my voice steady despite the rage inside. "This isn't okay, Bailey. She's not safe here." She laughed, a cold, familiar sound. "You think you're better than me? You're not her parent." But I saw the fear in Zoe's eyes, the way she clutched her sketchbook like a lifeline. She wasn't safe, and neither was I, trapped in a body and a family that didn't see me. That night I called Child Protective Services, CPS, reporting suspected neglect. The caseworker, Elena, interviewed Zoe and confirmed my fears. Nathan's drinking had escalated and Bailey was barely present, often leaving Zoe alone or dismissing her needs. CPS placed Zoe in temporary foster care, and I filed for emergency custody. As a graphic novelist, I told stories of resilience, but this was real. I knew the system's challenges, overworked caseworkers, biased judges, but I couldn't let Zoe stay in that environment. Simultaneously, I pursued the separation question. I met with Dr. Patel, a specialist in conjoined twin surgeries, who outlined the risks. A 60% chance of success for me, but a 40% chance Bailey could lose mobility or worse. Bailey refused to consider it, calling me selfish and obsessed. Our parents sided with her and accusing me of betraying the family. "You're risking Bailey's life," my mother said. You've always been difficult. My father's silence was deafening. The dual battles for Zoe's safety and my own autonomy pushed my PTSD to the edge, but Dr. Kim helped me stay grounded. I threw myself into the custody battle, using my storytelling skills to build a case. I documented everything: photos of Nathan's duplex, texts from Bailey ignoring Zoe's pleas, medical reports noting her bruises. I was fighting for Zoe, but also for the autonomy I'd never had, both physically and emotionally. The custody battle was grueling. Nathan, backed by my parents' money, hired a lawyer who painted me as an unstable artist with no parenting experience. Bailey testified that she'd been helping Nathan, claiming I was jealous of her role. My parents took the stand, saying I'd always been selfish, twisting my PTSD into evidence of unfitness. I fought back with evidence: photos of Nathan's duplex, CPS reports, texts from Bailey dismissing Zoe's needs. I called character witnesses: my publisher, who praised my integrity, my therapist, who testified to my recovery, and Claire's sister, who confirmed Claire would have wanted me to protect Zoe. Most importantly, I had Zoe's voice. In a closed session, she described Nathan's rages and Bailey's neglect, her voice trembling but resolute. Her drawings, dark sketches of a house filled with yelling, broke my heart and swayed the judge. The turning point came when I uncovered Bailey's financial deception. I'd hired a private investigator, using my savings, and found bank records showing our parents had sent her thousands for Zoe's care. But her social media showed designer clothes, concert tickets, and trips to Chicago. When I presented this in court, Bailey's charm faltered. She stammered, claiming the money was for essentials, but the judge saw through her. Parallel to the custody battle, I faced the separation decision. Bailey agreed to a medical evaluation, but only to prove I was wrong. Dr. Patel's tests showed separation was feasible, but the risks to Bailey were real. In a tearful confrontation, I told her, "I need to be me, Bailey, but I don't want to hurt you." For the first time, she listened, admitting she was scared of losing our connection. We agreed to delay the surgery, focusing on Zoe's case first, but the question lingered, a fracture in our bond. The judge granted me temporary custody, with a plan for permanent guardianship if Nathan and Bailey didn't meet CPS requirements. Zoe moved into my Minneapolis apartment, and I saw her relax, her shoulders no longer hunched in fear. Life with Zoe was a gift. I turned my spare room into a space for her, with art supplies, a bed, and posters of her favorite comics. She was cautious at first, scared to trust, but we built a routine: school, therapy, art classes. Zoe loved drawing, her sketches filling our home with stories. My PTSD flared, panic attacks at night, fears of failing her. But Dr. Kim helped me stay grounded. Bailey and I reached a fragile truce. She moved to Minneapolis, teaching music and visiting Zoe under supervision. We talked about separation again, and she agreed to consider it after therapy to process our fears. Our parents distanced themselves, unable to handle the cracks in their perfect image, but I set boundaries, focusing on Zoe and my work. I kept my career, publishing a new graphic novel about conjoined twins navigating identity. It became a bestseller, and I started a workshop for young artists. My colleagues and friends became my support system, helping with Zoe's care when I was on deadline. Over the years, Zoe thrived. She won art contests, her comics reflecting hope and resilience. We built traditions: Friday movie nights, Saturday hikes by Lake Superior, holiday sketching sessions. One day she called me Avery, then paused and said, "You're my family." I hugged her, my heart full. Bailey and I underwent separation surgery at 34, after years of therapy and planning. It was a success. I gained independence, and Bailey retained mobility with minor adjustments. We rebuilt our relationship as separate individuals, not as a single entity. My career soared. I won a national book award, and my workshops grew, inspiring kids like Zoe. My chosen family, friends, colleagues, Zoe's teachers, became my anchor. Our parents softened, sending letters, but I kept my distance, choosing peace over their approval. At Zoe's high school art show, I watched her present a comic about a hero finding their own path, dedicating it to me. Avery taught me to be myself. I hugged her, tears in my eyes, knowing I'd given her the safety I'd fought for. The question of separation, when only I wanted it, nearly tore Bailey and me apart, but it led me to Zoe and my own identity. I'm Avery Parker, graphic novelist, guardian survivor, and I've built a family and a life that's wholly mine.